Councillors, welcome to tonight's meeting of the Finance and Governance Committee of Georges River Council. I declare the meeting open at 6:04 p.m. Acknowledgement of country. The Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which this meeting is being held as that of the Badigal people of the Eora Nation. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute-taking purposes and is also being webcast live on Council's website. This recording will be made available on Council's website. The order of business is as shown in the agenda, which is being made available. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is open. Doors to the meeting room are to be left open unless the meeting moves into a closed confidential session according to section 13 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits the electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of Council, and mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. We have full attendance from councillors tonight, so I don't believe there's any apologies. Disclosures of interest. Do any councillors have any interest to declare on tonight's agenda? No? Okay. Public participation. There are no registered speakers for tonight. Okay. So we move along to confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Can I have a motion, councillors, to adopt the minutes? Councillor Symington, seconded Councillor Juminton. Any questions at all, councillors, or comments on the minutes? If not, we'll put that motion that the minutes of the previous meeting of the Finance and Governance Committee held on Monday the 11th of July 2022 be adopted. I move that. All those for say aye. All those against? Carried unanimously. Next item on the agenda is FIN 035-22, the risk management update.
I'll move it, but I do need a clarification.
Moved by Mayor Catras. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Green. And Mayor Catras has some questions.
Yeah, through the chair, could I put could I ask for a clarification on paragraph number 6, which indicates the following table compares the top 10 strategic risks from the JLT report to GRC strategic risks. In order of importance and high risk ranking, and it's got 1, 2, 3, and then it's got GRC rank 3, GRC rank 11. Could you provide some sort of clarification as to what those ranks actually mean?
To the director.
I'm happy to answer that question. So the JRT have undertaken a survey of councils within the local government sector to understand how they rate their strategic risks. These are their highest rated risks, they're not their only risks, and these are the things classed as their strategic risk. And the table on page 11 compares that for 2018, 19, 20 and 21 across the whole sector. And what we've also done is compared what those risks are in that ranking to the risk ranking as prepared and adopted by the council's executive team over the last 2 years, looking at various risks. So it would be incorrect to assess that a matter ranked 12 or 14 was a low ranked risk, just not probably as high as 1. For example, in 2019, tourism was identified as the 14th highest ranked risk for local government below the highest ranked risk, which was financial sustainability. The summary is contained in page 6, is merely saying that the across the sector, financial sustainability was the highest rated risk from a strategic risk point of view in the sector. At council here we ranked it number 3, so very similar. Cyber risk was much higher across the sector than as ranked by Georges River Council itself. Assets and infrastructure was ranked 3 across the sector, and we ranked it 5, so a very similar ranking. So generally those matters which were ranked in the top 10 risks of across the sector were very similar to our top 10, but slightly different orders. That's all. And I note that 9 and 10 were not identified as in our top 10 strategic risks, but they are identified elsewhere in our strategic risks. Across the organisation, we have an enterprise risk model that identifies and risks across, I know, a couple of hundred different risks. These are just the top ones. I was using a sport analogy. Perhaps might be that these are the top 10 players in the world, but the number 11 players still pretty good. So I wouldn't take too much notice about the fact whether or not it's 11 or 12 or 7 or 8. These are the highest ranked risks.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just,
Councillor Jamieson.
sorry, can I ask a question? Where does this JLT report come from? What does JLT stand for?
JLT are our insurers, and they provide insurance across the local government sector. I will confirm what JLT stands for and let you know what their initials stand for, but they provide insurances across the local government sector, and they are one of the largest insurers in local government. And that's why having a enterprise risk model is important, because that helps to, if we can explain how we've identified our risks and what actions we're taking to mitigate those risks, that helps to manage our insurance payments.
Another question, Councillor Symington, yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the Director. I've looked at Google and it's Jardine Lloyd Thompson. There you go.
And if you reckon Jardine in itself is a well-known name in risk insurance.
Thank you.
In fact, they were once just known as Jardines.
Thank you to the Director. Does anyone have any other questions on the risk management update? Otherwise, we have the recommendation, which is that Council receives and notes the risk management update report. It's been moved by Mayor Katras, seconded by Councillor Green. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. And declare it carried. Okay, the next item is FIN 036-22. It's property matter, commercial property portfolio report as of the 30th of June 2022. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Green, seconded Councillor Jamieson. Councillors, is there any questions on this report?
I would like to pose the Director has issued over 202,000 pay and display tickets, with just over 185,000 of those issued being free 2-hour parking tickets. Now, that's from the 25th of October to the 30th of June. That's about 17,000 that we got paid for, but 185,000 that we didn't get paid. I did my own little calculations and came up with a figure of roughly about $530 a week for each car park. To the Director, do you think, and this is just an opinion I'm asking for, do you think that 2 hours free parking is not assisting us very much with our revenue, and maybe drop it back to 1 hour or so?
To the Director.
We have introduced some slightly different fees into the car parks recently to increase occupation. Ultimately, what we want out of the car parks is high utilisation and good turnover. So we're trying to set the fees to attract, to achieve that outcome, as well as have a reasonable return on a commercial investment, because there is a couple of these car parks, for example, the strata fees for those properties are actually quite high. So we should be doing slightly better than break even on those sites. I might ask the head of Council Strategic Property team to just talk a little bit about some of the changes we've introduced recently.
Through the Chair, the decision to go from initially 3 hours free to 2 hours free was one that the Council decided would be fair to keep. it would be a council decision if you wanted to change it to reduce it even further to 1 hour free. You can see by the numbers of tickets that are being issued, the community has responded, and whereas you previously couldn't get a spot in some of these car parks, these are the above ground at grade car parks, you can now get a spot throughout most of the day because of that rotation that the 2 hour free parking brings in. In relation to the access controlled car parks, we're finding that there was the Avenue car park and Empress Lane that were very sluggish with the original fees that we had set pre-COVID. We've now introduced some new measures, the introduction of an early bird special where you can park for $5 all day if you in before a certain time and out after a certain time. That's only recently been introduced, but I went down today to the Avenue, for example, and the car park was 3/4 full. So I'm hoping at the end of the month that'll translate into increased revenue to at least cover the costs of operating these car parks.
With the, just a follow-up question through the chair, with the larger car parks like the one next door to us, just here in McMahon Street, it's 2 hours free, and I find, is it possible, and it may not sound, it may not happen, maybe I'm just a bit of a cynic, is it possible that people time themselves, come out of their office, press another ticket and put another free 2 hours?
Through the chair,
Not
the
possible,
technology is such you'd have to enter your number plate.
Okay.
So it gives you 2 hours free. Once you enter that number plate again, it'll request payment. So that can't be done.
Oh, okay.
So you get your 2 hours per vehicle per day free.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Symington has a question.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Morabito. Hypothetically, what if somebody was there and then they put in a different number plate that wasn't theirs? How does that work?
That's when the enforcement team take over. They check the tickets on the dash, the time pulled, how much time's left, if it's the right number plate. We've already seen that people have put, just an X or something, and they've been, issued a fine as such.
I have to say, like during the council elections, because it pre-poll, which I don't even want to remember, but it's really interesting, the difficulty, and probably people have got used to it by now, but remembering their registration plate, like that was like extremely hard for some people, particularly elderly people. So I found that was, but I suppose they've got used to it. So.
Can I also ask a question?
Councillor Johnson, yes.
I was just going to ask about the commercial properties, the vacancy rate. Is that typical of the vacancy rate? And are we usually at 100% occupancy?
To the council, sir.
Through the chair, our KPI is to be above 90%. So we've traditionally had roughly 5 or 6 properties that remain vacant. We've done very well through COVID to keep most of our tenants. But yeah, it normally hovers around that mark. We did have 100% occupancy a couple of years back, but that's near impossible to sort of keep. You just never know. And with the market, as commercial properties being tested with COVID, I think to remain above 90, we're doing pretty good.
You only have to look at a certain very large building in Hurstville that has a very, very small occupancy rate at the moment that verifies exactly what the manager's saying. Huge building, under-occupied.
Okay, councillors, is there any other questions on the commercial property portfolio report? If not, we have a recommendation that the property matter commercial property portfolio report as at 30th of June 2022 be received and noted by council, and that has been moved by Councillor Green and seconded by Councillor Jamieson. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. Declare that carried. Okay, the next item on the agenda is FIN 037-22, the investment report as at June 30, 2022. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Marnie moved, Councillor Jamieson seconded. Thank you. And Mayor Catchis, you have some questions?
Well, actually, I just want to bring something to the director's notice. So if you go to the summary by investment rating on page 16 of the report, you'll find the blue line exceeds the red line and the green line, which means that it appears, I'm not sure if that needs to be corrected, but it appears that we're over investing in AA securities. So I could get an explanation as to what's going to happen with that?
To the director?
Yeah, and I will ask the Ms. Parker, the Chief Financial Officer, to comment on this as well. My understanding is that this is more of probably a quirk of our way in which our investment policy was prepared, because you would anticipate that we would be able to invest far more in AA than what's currently allowed for on that chart. But I might just pass it to Ms. Parker.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So it did highlight to us in this month that we need to revise the policy. So this came about when the BBB was suspended. So anything below A is not placed. So it's not in council's interest, I guess, to prohibit us placing in A and above. So the numbers are going to be revised, hopefully in the next investment report to council, to permit that, as it's really just a loop. It's a constraint of the policy that does not provide benefit moving forward. So we'll be revising that. I wouldn't terminate the AA to get back in within policy. The policy needs to be revised. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
For clarity, as I understand it, AA is a higher rated investment than A, and therefore we probably want to have more in AA than we want to have in A. So the fact that we could have more in A and comply with the policy by moving stuff out of AA doesn't probably seem about right. Just as a sense, we probably need to do something about encouraging more investments in the higher rated investments, if that makes sense.
Thank you for those responses. Any other questions from councillors? If not, we have a recommendation that the investment report as at the 30th of June be received and noted by council. It's been moved by Councillor Marnie and seconded by Councillor Jamieson. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against? Declare it carried. Okay, the next item on the agenda is FIN 038-22, which is property matter easement to drain water at Emma Edwards Reserve. Councillors, I believe there may be some questions that may require us to go into confidential on this item.
Yeah, I am going to pose a couple of questions on this item and the next item.
Okay, and the next item as well. Okay, well, if I could call for a procedural motion to bring forward FIN 040-22, which is the administrative matter execution of documents under delegated authority. Bring that forward in the order of business to deal with that item in open council.
Move that procedural motion.
Thank you, Councillor Simonton, and Councillor Marnie seconded that. Thank you. So the motion is to bring forward FIN 040-22 forward in the order of business, so we can deal with that in open council. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I'll declare that carried. Okay, so we'll jump through the business now to item FIN 040-22, the administrative matter, execution of documents under delegated authority. Moved Mayor Catchis, and if I could have a seconder. Seconded Councillor Simonton. Councillors, any questions or discussion on this item? No? Okay. I'll put the recommendation then that the report be received and noted by council. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. Declare it carried. Okay. So at this stage of the meeting, with the time being 6:23 p.m, I hereby advise that the meeting will move into a committee of the whole to allow consideration of a matter in closed session in accordance with section 10A of the Local Government Act 1993. Accordingly, members of the press and public are excluded from the closed session, and access to the correspondence and reports relating to the items considered during the course of the closed session will be withheld. This action is being taken to allow discussion on the following items, and that is FIN 038-22, property matter, easement to drain water, Emma Edwards Reserve, Hurstville, and FIN 039-22, property matter, proposed dedication for road widening and grant of easement for vehicular access at 75 Louis Terrace, Hurstville. So I need a procedure, a motion to move into closed session. Oh no, hang on. I got to keep reading. Accordingly, members of the press and public are excluded from the closed session, and access to the correspondence and reports relating to the items considered during the course of the closed session will be withheld. With this meeting being held remotely, we are unable to ask if there are any objections from the audience. Well, I suppose we can, but there is no audience, so that's okay. To the meeting, moving in closed session. And to the director, have you had any written representations from the public objecting? No, there's been no objections from the public. So I'll need a procedural motion that we move into Councillor Symington and Councillor Marnie, seconded. So the motion is that in accordance with section 10A, clause 2 of the Local Government Act 1993, Council enter into closed session to discuss the matters previously read aloud to the meeting. As moved by Councillor Symington and seconded by Councillor Marnie. All those in favour say aye, and all those against say no. And so I'll declare that carried, and we will now wait for the public webcast to be stopped. All right, we're back in open session, and we have we just had questions in the closed session, and so now we will consider the two items that we had questions on, which is FIN 038-22, property matter, easement to drain water at Emma Edwards Reserve.
I'll move that, Madam Chair.
Councillor Symington has moved that. Councillor Jamieson has seconded. Oh, I assume we have no other questions, so we'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I'll declare that carried. And the final item is FIN 039-22, property matter, proposed dedication for road widening and grant of easement for vehicular access at 75 Louis Terrace, Hurstville.
I'll move that, Madam Chair.
Councillor Symington has moved it. Councillor Jamieson has seconded it. Again, assume no questions, so we'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. We'll declare that carried. And there being no other business on the agenda, I declare this meeting closed at 6:45 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you, staff, for your detailed responses tonight.